Forward to the gosh.
Right,
Yes.
let me load this up. Oh, they did move the button for screen sharing. Hold on. Hold on, sorry, I'm trying to find the screen share button. Oh, there, okay, got it. Okay. Mix a slideshow. Okay. All right. My little sticky note to remind me to go slow. All right. So parent umbrella, sorry, umbrella and bag is my parent and coaching and behavioral consulting company I have. So that's where I like to do a lot of my presentations through. And so my presentation's on reducing ABA jargon with parents. And my intended audience for this is kind of working with people who kind of work already in providing behavioral interventions, such as like RBTs or BCBA, someone who's already working in the field or starting to work in the field, maybe in schools, kind of just have that focus there. And so what is jargon basically is, sorry, I can't see my words because I can't see the pictures. It is technical language that is specialized terminology associated with a particular field. And the next point, it says it may not be well understood outside that context, which I like that point. And also jargon is considered usually used in the context of a particular occupation, but any in-group can have jargon. So I was thinking too, like sports teams, sororities, clubs also have their own jargon. We just also in ABA land have our own specialized jargon. So I also think it's like important to know that this isn't just our specialty, but kind of something to work on everywhere. And so one of the things I kind of want to work on right now is kind of talking about like, why do we use jargon? So what do you guys think are some of the reasons that you yourself probably use jargon in the ABA or have seen it or think why?
I think maybe it gives us a professional kind of air to our field, because sometimes it can seem like really obvious, but just because it's obvious doesn't mean that you're really seeing it and able to do it.
And I would say just because we're just now learning it, some of us just get introduced to some of that, so we won't forget what it is. So that's why we're using it.
Yeah, so both great reasons, things I think about too. So some of the things I highlighted in here were that for academic related ones are that we're in grad school, we're studying for BCBA exams, kind of showing that like we have this intelligence. We've been kind of trained to be overly academic as well in our schooling undergrad programs. I know that these are a lot of them are mine currently. And then professionalized, we kind of want to sound important. We want to sound smart. We might be overcompensating. Also, I think sometimes it's limited soft people skills. Like we don't know how to have that really soft conversation. So we just kind of either overcompensate or we just simply, you know, forget that we maybe should, you know, simplify our term. And so here are some whys I think, you know, jargon may be bad to use. It may be confusing or intimidating. It may make parents think we're hiding something or trying to trick them into interventions. I know my nephew has IEP plans and my sister has brought me along to plenty of meetings. And simply as that, because she goes, I have no idea what they're saying. Can you translate this for me? And that's something that parents, you know, they get intimidated. They don't know what's going on. They get overwhelmed and suddenly feel like they should know better. And I think when they feel confused and intimidated, they don't want to work with people in these services. And also just a lack of people skills. It's bad. It shows us, and also I think those people skills, if we don't have those people skills towards parents to what we're saying, it also makes these limited opportunities for us to like work with our kids, because parents like, well, if you're not soft with me, are you going to be soft and approachable to my children? So I think it makes that, it doesn't connect that bridge. It creates a divide with us for able to educate parents and peers. Also, it makes us sound snobby and inclusive. I think that's something in academia that a problem with, sounding too, you know, up there, uppity, and as well as it, you know, makes us sound, the harshness of ABA has its own reputation of being harsh, and it kind of continues the idea, as well as it doesn't focus on the social significance of the clients. I think if we're not meeting the clients where they're at, and we're not communicating to where they're at, we're not meeting their social significance. And so some practice I wanted us to do was to kind of go through here and just kind of go through each of these and kind of think about talking about like how can we say these phrases that, and these are ones I always have a hard time with, and say them in a very simpler term, less jargony term. You can just go.
Yeah. For non-contingent reinforcement, I would just say, you know, this is the thing they're going to get no matter what they do, no matter what they're doing, no matter what they're saying, they're still going to get this reinforcement. It happens a lot in the beginning, like when we're pairing and trying to get to know the kids. And it's important to have something that they really like for this non-contingent reinforcement.
I think, oh, you can go. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say non-contingent reinforcements, just providing the child or client something for what basically showing up, giving them something, giving them something so they'll keep coming and be interested in working with, you know, something to get them, you know, connected.
Yeah, I specifically picked this term because this is one I always have a hard time explaining to people. And I said getting reward without doing something specific. That was something simplest way I could think to say it, but this is what I always have a challenge with, which again, going back to what you said, Lindsay, it should be very like to us common sense, or just it seems like it makes sense. Like contingency is a place of time, but it doesn't. And so would either of you like to try differential reinforcement of alternate behavior?
So, okay, wait, this is DRA, right?
Correct. So, yes.
So, this would be when we're rewarding behavior, in order to reinforce a behavior that's different than the one we're seeing all the time, I think. So like if a kid is, like screaming all the time, my reward when they use a normal tone of voice or a normal level as opposed to screaming. And then so you're rewarding the alternative behavior, not the and making sure that you don't you know, unintentionally reward the maladaptive behavior, I guess.
Yeah. And so question for you though, would you use the term maladaptive behavior with a parent?
No, probably not. But I also like I struggle with that because like I'm very like I'm very down to earth, and I'm very like my kids are not angels. Like every time the speech therapists and stuff come out and they're just like, oh, it went so well. And I'm like, look, you don't have to lie to me, lady. I've met these kids.
Yeah. And I think it's tricky because I think, again, if you work in the system, you work with kids, like another educator said maladaptive, I don't know immediately what that means. Product behavior, target behavior. Those are all things naturally here. So what I said is simply rewarding a new behavior that is replaces a previously, can't say my phrasing, previously not preferred behavior. So something I was trying to think of the simplest way, like we don't like the behavior, we can't replace it with something else. And then I have some two more. Would either you like to do extinction? Patty, you want to do extinction?
Sure, I guess it's working with the behavior until it's gone.
Yeah.
It's extinction.
It's never really truly gone though, is it?
No, until you're not seeing it as often as you know it was there before previously.
So my daughter does this weird thing where like about every 3 months, she will just start screaming like at the top of her lungs, just inside. And it's already been put on extinction. She knows it's not going to get her attention. It's not going to get her anything that she wants. Nothing. I think she just thinks it's almost like sensory, maybe. It's just fun for her.
Yeah.
But about every 3 months, she'll go a day or two where she'll just start screaming again just to see like, maybe it's going to work now. Yeah, let's see. Let's see if it's going to work now.
It's been 3 months. So what I simply said, as I wrote here, as I said, not reinforcing a problem behavior at all so that it stops altogether. Mind you, that's a very simple form. Of course, we know distinction involves reinforcement. However, if I would explain this to a parent, what this definition was, I would try to explain it like, here's a simple, here's an apple, here's an orange, now let's add a fruit salad of phrases later on. And then last, we have generalization. Would either of you like to do generalization?
So we're going to generalize the behavior so that this is a behavior we can see at home and at school and at the park. And also like different times of the day, you don't want a behavior that only happens during, math time. You might be working on raising their hand or taking turns or whatever. So,
I like that example of saying like school and home in the park, because I think we just say different settings sometimes. It's almost too broad, which I think I did say. So I mean, my simple setting was, I said learning one skill that can be used in different ways or places. But I think that's where you expand on and that great, what does places mean? Places means this. So I think that was a really great way to break that down. Good job, everyone. Appreciate you doing that.
Well, like I have a problem like when parents say things to me like, oh, I think my child has like ADHD, or I think my child has autism, or I think, and I'm like, well, maybe, but it's like, when are you seeing this behavior? Like, is it only at school? Is it only with mom? Is it only, because that to me says, it could be the environment.
Yeah, I always say that too. I'm like, oh, hey, want to make notes and talk to the pediatrician that way too. I think that's a great way to kind of segue to that of like, use notes. And then my kind of final thoughts here were, removing jargon from ABA makes the services and people providing those more welcoming, and therefore increasing the social significance of those services, as well as removing jargon takes practice. So allow yourself time to learn how to use it. And just for example, time, like those free word definitions, took me a good 10 minutes just to think down how to break them and say them. And I feel like I've used those so many times in different ways. And I'll often be like, oh, that's a DRA. I will point things out so don't feel like it takes time and practice. So it's definitely a strategy. It's hard because we've taught ourselves so much academia phrasing. And in these work phrases, we say these shortcut words like DRA, DRO, extinction, NCR, all these, but not buzzwords, but phrasing that. So it takes a challenge. So don't beat yourself up too if you're having to like go back. It's just, think of it learning a whole second language, I guess to say. Or also, I have this silly rule of thumb for myself, is that if I can't explain it to a 3 or 4-year-old, then I can't really explain it to make it anyone else understand it. If I can't make it so a small child can understand it, a neurotypical developmental, a neurotypical developmental child, if I can't make them understand it in that way, then I maybe need to simplify what I'm saying or break down what I'm saying in a way that is easier for all to understand. That's kind of my own rule because I work with younger kids, and therefore I also have to be able to explain these concepts to their adults. But that's there. All right. Well, thank you everyone for your time. Any questions?
No, just a comment that I think sometimes parents, when they hear a lot of jargon like that, they're really intimidated and they won't ask questions because they don't want to seem stupid.
Yes.
And so,
I agree.
Yeah. That's totally valid, Lindsay. I agree with that. But I can also tell you, I've sat on the other side of the table where mom was a lawyer or even a special educator or whatever. And when you come in and don't use the terms, they're like, are you really legit? And so it goes both ways. And so I know this is what we're going to do now is go through the CARES form and talk about CARES. But before I do that, I want to give Lindsay a yay rah. So I'm going to do that first, because when you gave your examples, you said, oh, generalization is when we teach them how to do this in different, at the park, at the this, at the that. So you did both. You provided the vocabulary, but you also clearly explained it. And that maintains the integrity of our field. That maintains the vocabulary, right? That's why we have vocabulary, so that when I say, Lindsay, work on generalization, you know that means 5 paragraphs worth of stuff, but I'm not going to tell you the 5 paragraphs worth of stuff, but we both know exactly what we're talking about, right? That's why we do the technical term of the week, so that we learn that vocabulary and it maintains the integrity of our field. professional to professional, but we've got to learn how to recognize where our clients are, whether that's the kid, the parents, the nannies, the business people, whoever, and talk on a level that makes us approachable and welcoming, which Christina, you did a great job of talking about. So let's transition to the CARES form. And I'm going to have one of you give one example of each of these levels. So I don't want both of you giving an example for C. So you can raise your hand and say, yeah, that's the one that I want to do. But so I want somebody to congratulate Christina. Tell her something that she did really well in this presentation. Short and sweet.
I think she did really well on explaining reasons why we use jargon, because sometimes you don't think about that. I really like them. Why do we use it? So yeah, congratulations.
Love that. Thank you, Dr. Patty, right? Clear and sweet. All right, so then who wants to either ask for some clarification or give a suggestion in the passive voice?
Okay.
Go, Miss Lindsay.
The presentation could use more pictures. As a neurodivergent person, I often associate like pictures with the text, and it helps me memorize things. So if I was gonna present something to like a parent, even if it's just like a small little over to the side, I might have a little picture or a little something to help them relate it back to the source.
That was good feedback. Thank you. I appreciate that. As someone who does not like pictures, it's good to hear the why. Actually, I never got the notion of like giving the image and connecting it as like a neurodivergent person. I'm more like sometimes too matter of fact. So I do appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
And this might be because the topic that you were talking about is not easy to find pictures that relate to the topic, but you can. I was thinking like maybe a does not equal sign or a question mark or the arrows pointing to each other or something, some visual that's not necessarily non-contingent reinforcement, right? That's not, oh, I'm too academic. All right, what is that picture? But so some type of symbol that kind of relates to that. Okay, awesome. So Dr. Patty, back to you. Request more. So ask Christina for something that was not presented that might be a next training. And so Christina, I'm going to tell you now, you don't even have to really answer this question. If you have an answer, that's a one-liner, but it's not dive into the next training. It's a quick thought, and next month I will tell you about that in part 2. So you got anything, Dr. Patty?
I do. But I had wrote it for my number 2, but I can see how I can fit for my well, for my A, for my R.
Yes.
I'm trying to say it in a passive voice.
No, well, this is a direct question.
Oh, okay, direct question.
So lay it on us in a direct question, and then if we go, ooh, that sounds rude, then we'll say, well, how could we do it passive?
Direct question. Is what is an in group? You had I think it was the second slide. It said something about in group, but everybody doesn't know what an in group is. So.
Oh, that's a good actually feedback. Yeah, I was thinking in group as like a small social group, but that
as we
in my don't use jargon group, I use jargon. That's a good, yeah. It's like a small group, like a club or situation. But okay. Thank you for giving that. I need to think that sometimes I use words that I don't, again, that I think are just honors English students. Me, sorry, but that's a good thing to think about for like other trainings later on. It being like, are all these words ones that I could easily, if someone's quickly taking notes, could easily like see and understand. Thank you for that.
Awesome. All right, Lindsay, give her an overall assessment. Did she meet the goals of the training to inform us about how we could de-jargon ABA?
Yes, I thought she did amazing. I thought her examples and the way that she had us work through de-jargoning some of the words was really good. I thought those were really thought out examples. I'd like to see some more pictures in a presentation in the future. But overall, I thought it was a great presentation, and I thought it was very well done, because that's something I'm also passionate about, is like talking to parents.
Love it. And Dr. Patty, a summary. So the summary can be something new that you learned, or a one takeaway. You have anything to add to that?
Something I knew what an in-group is, but we use them in different little scenarios and different things. So I just wanted to know what it was when you're talking jargon to the in the ABA field. And I loved your I really did love your why we may think people use jargon, because now I can use some of that in the special ed arena, because they use those jargons and throw out terms all day long, and they were throwing out LRE and all this stuff in a meeting today, and the lady kept nudging me, what's LRE, what's that, you know, and she didn't know, and she's one of the assistant principals at the school, so you know, if we don't know, then we don't need to be using that. So I had to slid my paper over, and it already had the definition written down for us.
Love
I think one that gets thrown around a lot at the very beginning is like tact and manned.
I hate those words.
Because you're talking about you know, working with the kids, you know, the first few days. Oh, you know, they mandated for this, and you know, it's like, oh, well, they asked for this. Or you know, they tacted all the animals in the zoo book, or you know,
they attacked it, right? It's like, what, they attacked it,
which like
right?
Yes, in ABA land they have specific definitions of what they are, but like that doesn't translate into like a parent. Like, no, they just say they asked for this, they requested this.
That. Awesome. All right, I'm going to stop recording.